Hello. Um,
We're here on a special day.
yes, it's Misha's birthday. Happy birthday, Misha!
Happy birthday, Misha!
Happy birthday! Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
And before we dive into our topic, reminder to anybody out there who is watching or tuning in to just join in the conversation. We want to hear from you. And make sure you subscribe to our channel. We need you. Please subscribe and like and all that good stuff. Alrighty, so let's talk about the topic, shall we? What is the topic, folks?
We are talking about Emotions 101 again. Last week we talked about emotions. I can't remember what last week's topic was. Can't trust your feelings. That's what we talked about. This week we're talking about Emotions 101. What is a glimmer?
That's kind of a new term.
Yes, 2018.
Yeah,
Which
I was surprised.
it's not really a topic, it's more of a question. And if we can answer this question, we're done with the live.
Okay, cool.
Let's do it.
We
just
got
have
a
to figure
birthday
out.
to celebrate. No, I'm just kidding. We
Right.
love being here. We love being here. Actually, I'm feeling a lot of glimmers right now. Yeah. Right.
Okay, so we're getting closer. A glimmer is a good thing.
Okay. Who else has a hint?
It's the opposite of something.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, it has an opposite. We're
has
getting
an
a little warmer.
Opposite of something that starts with a T. Let's give him a little
Okay.
more, okay?
So,
Do you want to fill in the blank?
sure, we'll fill in the blank. I mean, I think what we're seeing, it is the opposite of is a trigger. And if we were to talk about, so I don't have to define it. I think just by giving you that, we can start to define this, right? So if we're saying it is the opposite of a trigger, I think we have to first define what a trigger is. So can we quickly define, not quickly, whatever we wish, what a trigger is? I know Misha and Lisa can because they both teach 101. Can anybody else?
It is some sort of environmental cue that causes an involuntary reaction that may induce panic or fear or negative emotions.
Mhm.
Boom.
I would
Okay.
also add, though, that it's not always an environmental clue.
Mhm.
I think it can be an internal association. It can be, something that is internally kind of wrapped up and gets us thinking again. And that could be, of course, by external, like listening to a song or running into somebody at the grocery store or who knows what. But I do think also that some of those triggers can come from an internal well of, oh, something is still inside of me. And I'm feeling, a sensation. And there's a chat that I can't read while I'm talking, but it popped up and I'm not going to. I'll stop there if somebody else has something to add.
Yeah, I think a thought can be triggering for me, at least. Like if I haven't wanted to think about a certain thing or a certain person in a really long time, and all of a sudden I do, sometimes that can feel triggering.
So this is all sort of birthed out of this concept of the polyvagal theory. And I can define polyvagal therapy and polyvagal theory in therapy for you. Essentially, it is, again, we're rooting in this the vagus nerve and vagal responses, and which are these automatic responses that our body has that trigger certain chemicals, certain things that happen within us that then put us in various states. And that polyvagal response doesn't mean necessarily it's negative. It doesn't necessarily mean it's positive, but it's the whole theory of this is learning to regulate and find a consistent rhythm within our body and emotional responses, and finding this sort of balance and understanding how our body physically responds to the reasons that it does. And that's sort sort of where this concept of glimmer came from. It was specific. I'm just going to give credit where it is due. It was a specific woman. I have her name up here.
I thought it was a man. I thought polyvagal theory was from a man.
Yeah. So Deb came up with the
Glimmer.
Glimmer.
Mhm.
Deb, oh, okay.
I like that. I like the name that she changed it to because, I associate it with glimmer of hope, right? Glimmer of positive, kind of those
Mm.
moments that we can build upon.
Deb Dana
Polyvagal
is the
sounds
one who-
technical.
Yes. So yes, she wrote a book called The Polyvagal Theory, in which she coined the term glimmer. And her name is Deb Dana, and it has since sort of taken off. I'm sure you guys have heard about it on TikTok if anybody's on any kind of mental health talk.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve. At some
Hi,
point,
Steve.
I'm sure the concept of glimmers has come up in your feed, and if it hasn't by now, it probably will after this. Oh, I'm having sound issues.
And I'll just add, so as we were talking about triggers and like the definition of trigger, there are lots of things that can create triggers. And so what we were talking about as a group before we came on was David Rock's neurotriggers. So those of you who've had 101 with us, we talk about the acronym SCARF. And so these can be both joyful glimmer. These actually could be glimmers, or they could be triggers depending on what happens. So there's the status, there's certainty, there's autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. That's the SCARF. Or no, it was this way, SCARF. Anyways, so if there's an opportunity where someone gets a raise, they've just been elevated in their status, they're going to have a glimmer more likely. If somebody is demoted or feels like they're being undermined, they're going to have a trigger. And so this is just another way to look at it for those of you coaches out there when you're working with clients. Like, are they in a glimmer stage or are they in a trigger stage? I mean, you could use it any way you want, but this is kind of like one of the things that we're bringing up around, because it can be, triggers can actually be a positive trigger, but they're not called triggers. They're called glimmers is what this idea is.
Exactly. So, and knowing that, I bet my mic's better now. Yes. And knowing that, I mean, and so that when we talk about glimmers, we're in the same way that you want to know what your triggers are, it's beneficial to learn what your glimmers are, right? So have we defined glimmer? Do we feel as though we have defined glimmer? I think there are parts of it we need to further define.
I kind of want to get a little bit further into how you know you're being triggered, so that way we can later lead into how do I know I'm feeling glimmer versus just feeling happy about something. Because right now, it doesn't sound like being triggered sounds all too different from just I'm not feeling good today or I'm not feeling happy. What is the feeling of actually being triggered feel like versus just any typical negative emotion? I'm starting with triggers first, but we'll work our way into glimmers.
It's that a fight or flight response is initiated.
Yeah, so it's danger. From what I read, a trigger is your body sensing danger.
And so you go into your autonomic response, which is fight, flight, fawn, freeze. And it's as a result, all these physical things happen that our body responds. I mean, it's built into us as an evolutionary construct for us to survive, right? I think one of the examples that's been given in the past is we have a tendency, like if we're walking down the street 100 times and nothing happens, we're fine. But then we walk down the same street and a bear jumps out and mauls you, you survive. But now forever, you're going to probably have some kind of trigger around that street because your body is going to go.
Or bears.
Yeah, bears. Your body's going to go into this fight or flight response to try to save itself. And it often does so with or without the danger, right? Being present. There's something that happens where we go into a response where we're supposed to be in survival mode. But there is truly nothing to be surviving from, or not nothing. I mean, not to the degree that our body responds to it. I would say it's one thing, this is built into us when we're having to run away from predators, right? We're having to run away from imminent danger. But as we have evolved as a species, and we're no longer as often in these situations where we have to actually fight or fly, but those processes still exist within us, and as a result, they are often triggered in situations that aren't as beneficial to us as they would be if we were still living in the ways that those initial processes were built for.
So amygdala hijacking is what Brooke is talking about. We've all heard that. Go ahead.
No, I was saying that amygdala, here
Yeah.
it is. And you've got the prefrontal cortex, and the amygdala is being hijacked. Bing! You flip your lid. It's scary.
It's true.
And it happens really fast. And it happens faster than our frontal cortex can often process it. And it sends a whole bunch of beep, beep, beep signals. And then by then it's too late. Our body has already released the chemicals, released the hormones, and we have to figure out how to step it back.
Well, and this is where in the coaching session we talk about, well, not necessarily in the session, but we've talked about in the class that we've taught folks about the acronym FEAR, false evidence appearing real. Because it's, and actually it's previously real evidence, but in the moment, because it's not actually happening anymore, it's not real anymore, but it was real, and we still have that reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
So now contrast that with a glimmer, which we're saying is the opposite of a trigger. How is a glimmer different from just feeling good?
So let's take a moment and everybody just go with me down this road for a second. And if you want, I invite you to close your eyes, but if you don't need to close your eyes to visualize, you don't have to close your eyes. But think of something that makes you feel safe. Maybe the last time you felt safe, you felt warm, accepted. You felt, if none of those words attached to you, something in that realm, that a moment when you had this feeling of simple joy, safety, maybe it's family, maybe there's a number of things, because we will all have a different glimmer. So go back to whatever that moment was. Where were you? What were you doing? What caused that feeling? Anybody want to go first?
I didn't know we were supposed to open our eyes.
Oh, yeah, feel free.
Oh, well, I'll go. I mean, I think for me, just arriving in the live and everybody wishing me a happy birthday. Like, it was so warm and cuddly and joyful. And that's how I feel, honestly, every time I enter this group when we do our staff meetings or anything else. And so so I know when I get into the space with all of you that I don't have to have my guard up. I can just be who I am. Like, it's real natural and loving. And that's my glimmer.
Easy for me.
Yeah.
Last time I was with my entire family, so the immediate family, over Christmas break.
What did you feel? Tell us more.
Well, it's just like what you said, Misha. It's a space where I feel like I can just be myself. Don't get to see all of them that often, so it's a moment for me to be able to cherish and again just be who I am in that moment, so I can appreciate it to the fullest.
Is there, and I want to get to everybody too, but is there something in your everyday life that reminds you of those moments?
I got pictures right there of my nephews, 2 of them, right next to my keys. So every time I leave, those. Yeah.
Just very small pictures.
Yeah, they're really tiny photo size or wallet size, but yeah.
And for me, it's the Slack channel that's going off nonstop.
Yeah.
Even in the early wee hours of the morning. Oh, good morning.
Lisa?
I have so many different ones. It's hard to nail one. I mean, definitely family is it. I enjoy our interactions. That's partly, when we're going off on the Slack channel, I go, I don't want to type anymore. I want to connect. And so I, have get on a video or not video, whatever we are. But what kind of came up also was I was thinking about my grandma and how warm and cuddly I always felt secure and safe with her. And so when I have those memories, I just get that feeling. Yeah.
Is there anything that helps you tap into those memories?
Yes. So fresh cut grass amazingly does that because I grew up in Connecticut on the East Coast, and there's this grass that's just so soft and easy to walk on and so green and fresh smelling when they cut it. And anytime I smell a whiff of that kind of scent, it kind of takes me back there.
Misha has green hair, Steve. I have pink hair.
Actually, well, it's teal and purple, and then I also have earrings that have green in them.
It's awesome. We have colorful hair here.
Lisa. No, just kidding. That's really beautiful, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And I love the association too. Anthony, come on now.
I would have to say probably reading a book in like the early hours of the morning or late at night and there's nothing going on. Probably the best example of this is like when, I don't know, I was like in school or in college, something like that, where it's like there's a break, there's no work, there's nothing going on. I could just be in my little cocoon world and whatever book I'm reading for like hours at a time. Nothing else is going on. And books now, I've got books lying all over the place. That's my cue of reminding me of that. Not that I don't actually think it reminds me of
Do you ever
that
smell your
particular
book?
thing.
Do you ever sniff them?
New books sometimes.
I love the smell of a new book. Yeah.
Some books from like used bookstores, they got a little funk to them.
I love. There's
probably black mold, but
there's something about the smell of a book.
I can tell you a weird one. Can I add to your story there a little quick? Harbor Freight. You know that smell?
I love that smell.
Harbor Freight.
I love the smell of fresh cut wood.
My grandfather always had tire stores, several tire stores, and we would stud the tires. And so that scent that's in Harbor Freight is what reminds me of him. Anyway, just to borrow your moment there, Anthony.
well, it's not really the smell that's triggering. It's more of just like
seeing the book,
being in a space where like I can just focus on something for a few hours and not have to worry about anything else.
Jen?
So mine are very micro moments. They're very brief, but they're very abundant. So like as soon as I wake up in the morning, typically I have this moment where I'm like, oh my God, my bed is so comfortable. I'm so lucky that I have this bed, and I just like bask in it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I think when I wake up, which is amazing and very much in contrast to how I used to think when I woke up. It wasn't always like that, let's just say. And then it's like I have the most delicious cup of coffee, and I just have this moment of like, oh God, this is amazing. And then every time I pet the dog or see the dog or whatever, I have that moment. Sometimes too, like a smell, a song, anything that just triggers. Like the other day, I walked into my house and the office is getting painted, so I had the windows open. And there was a smell that was the outside coming in, and it was a perfect temperature. And it immediately gave me this feeling of like complete safety and comfort. And I was like, that's really interesting. I don't even know what that's about. But so mine are always really tiny. So when I call my parents, when they answer the phone, that moment where I hear their voice, immediately I have this, because I know so many people don't have their parents around anymore. And so there's just this moment of gratitude a lot. Very simple micro moments are my glimmers.
When my dad calls me Brookie, that's a warm, and like immediately I get warm and fuzzy. More recently, going to visit my nephew. He's just so cute. And kitty meows, kitty purrs. a cozy blanket. Oh, I love a cozy blanket. Cup of coffee in the morning, so
Yeah.
good. But I agree. I have micro moments, but then I also have these moments where like I just feel this like there's something of the like overwhelming comfort and joy and like just like and it's more like relaxation. It's not like there's a it's like a combination of like relaxed and just contentment. Which I think would be the total opposite of our triggers, right? And it's so funny because when we talk about glimmers, they're little things, they're simple things, right? Like, and it's a smaller sense, a smaller physical reaction. But I think that really is a testament to how much of an opposite it is to a trigger, right? Because a trigger can be so big, and with our glimmers, it's like this. It doesn't have to be. It's these little micro moments that we enjoy that bring us joy throughout the day.
But I think we could think about, I think we put so much more into a trigger when really it could be thought of in small micro things as well. They just get bigger by how we address them.
Well, it's interesting. I was following you, Brooke, and then I thought, well, I'm an empath and a highly sensitive person. So my glimmers and my triggers tend to carry the same weight. I'm like, woo, or woo. And so it's kind of like figuring out. And then of course I have the whole spectrum. Like there can be these extreme joy and extreme, glimmers and extreme triggers. And then there's also all the way in between, to a neutral space for me. I think it just depends. Like in that first visualization that you did, I had several things that came to mind. But the largest one, well, actually, I shouldn't say that because my partner, I had a visual of my partner also holding me when I'm sad. And that was like, it could be a trigger, but it also could be like this beautiful moment of being held when I am sad, knowing that there's this safe container, kind of like what Jen brought up earlier. But yeah, I just feel like they're all over the spectrum for me, but I don't know. I'm also a very emotional, on my sleeves kind of person. Is that a result of negativity, bias?
Oh, the fact that it can feel different. I mean, it's possible. So I think one of the things, so there's this really wonderful infographic that sort of does this comparison where triggers, and it says triggers bring us to a survival state. And right when we're surviving, I think there's a sense of panic and overwhelm.
I agree with that.
Whereas glimmers bring us to an anchored state. And so when we're anchored, I feel like we're not overwhelmed. At least I don't feel like I'm overwhelmed when I'm anchored, or at least I'm anchored. And if I am overwhelmed, it's manageable, if that makes sense.
Well, when you say anchor, I think of security and safety. Is that what you mean?
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, not necessarily security and safety. I think of like grounded, being grounded. Being,
okay.
Centered.
When I feel like in a survival state, for me, I feel like a survival state is very you can tell I'm kinesthetic and audio digital in these moments because I'm trying. So like I feel when I'm in a survival state, I feel like everything is whirling. You know what I mean? There's just going on, and when I'm in an anchored state, I feel grounded and solid. You know what I mean? There's not this sense of panic. I'm not in my head. I'm just settled. And for me, that's what the difference is. But an anchored state might feel very different to somebody else. So what does being anchored feel like to you guys?
We're all saying happy birthday to Misha as well. She's going to leave in a little bit.
Happy birthday, Misha.
Yeah, thank you very much. And for me, anchored is centered and grounded, and I look forward to becoming more centered and grounded. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody.
All right, see you, Misha. So I guess to kind of address Steve, as well as what it feels like, I think it's just kind of easier to identify with triggers because they're easier to see in real life. Like there's physical symptoms you can observe. Like if I looked at a group of people who was being triggered, or looked at a group of people and try to figure out who's being triggered, you might look for the person who looks anxious, is fidgeting, maybe they have an increased heart rate, they look scared, they're not at peace. But if you looked at a group of people and you tried to find, okay, which one's experiencing the glimmer, it might be harder to identify because looking like you're grounded and at peace might not look all that different from just being in a neutral state. It's more of like an internal process that's going in.
Do we think that awareness plays a factor too? Because this is a relatively new concept. The more people become aware of the other side of triggers, the more people become aware of glimmers, the more they're going to start finding them in their life. I would imagine that is what has happened to me. What do you guys think?
I think that yeah, they go hand in hand. I think that as we become more emotionally aware and more self-aware, we the natural step, we tend, I think, I mean, we've got negativity bias, like Steve brought up. We have a penchant, again, survival instincts here, to fixate on negative brain bias. And so naturally, we've got a big word for triggers and all of these things, and we've been focusing on that. But now we're starting to come around to the other side and realize that our body can respond the same way to positive things. Like, you know, there's a positive, there's two sides of the coin, and there's the world in between as well.
I think also there's like, I think while the term glimmer might be relatively new, I think people have been describing that experience in different words for a little while now. Like,
Sure.
I'm trying to think of like maybe nostalgia
Mhm.
is one term gets thrown around on the internet, but it's like a nostalgia for like, you know,
Mhm.
good things that they remember, or like childhood nostalgia. Like I'll see that for some reason my TikTok is just barraged with 90s, 2000 childhood nostalgia.
Yes.
But if people in the comments, they're describing the feelings they get when they see these things, or, you know, hear these songs or whatever from their childhood. And what they're describing sounds a lot like what we've been talking about a glimmer is, although they're not
Yeah.
using these words for it.
It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But they're essentially, sounds like they're describing the same thing.
And you know, it's interesting when you like look up what the definition of nostalgia is. I mean, it is very much talking about a very similar process. Absolutely, it is. I think too, it's something we do with visualization, right? Where we're trying to find lower our heart rate, go to a calming place. We go to places where we feel positive and safe. I know, like I do breath hold activities at night, like breath hold. I do static training essentially to lengthen out my breath hold so I can hold it longer. And a huge part of that is lowering your heart rate and doing visualizations. And the visualizations that I'm doing and the things I'm saying are, you know, I'm relaxed, I'm calm, I'm safe, I'm okay. And then it'll take it to the next step, and I'll be thinking of like moments where I feel those glimmers, and like, or family members and people that I love, and like hugging them, and like, and things like that, just to keep myself calm and cool and collected. And I didn't think of it as glimmers, but it was like, this is a visualization I do to make myself calm and bring my heart rate down and feel safe and cozy. But we're talking about very much about the same thing in this. So I think you're right. These are concepts that have been around for a long time. Think about like going home, like the feeling of, if you had whatever home is to you, and it doesn't have to be your traditional home, but it's something we talk about. You know, when we go home, there's a lot of associations with what that is and why people are looking forward to going home, to being home, and what home means to them. And I think home and the concept of home is a glimmer, sort of in its own way.
It
Yeah.
could also be a
I
trigger.
think so. Yeah.
Yes, it could. And it can be both at the same time, ironically.
Really?
Yes, true.
Which you're making the point that the glimmer says, even though I might be feeling secure, safe, grounded, anchored, that doesn't mean that other things aren't still happening. It's just that my ability to not be, I guess the word would be overwhelmed, or amygdala hijacked going into triggers. I'm still able to handle the moment in a safe, calm experience.
Yeah, from what I read, they were saying that glimmers can be experienced by anyone, including people who have been severely traumatized, people who are experiencing grief, that, everyone has access to glimmers, which is really amazing.
So let's talk about that. What makes it amazing? Like, what are the benefits of knowing our glimmers?
Hmm. Less stress,
Yeah.
lower blood
knowing
pressure.
knowing what cues like sort of help you feel secure and grounded or put you in a mental state. One thing I'm as I'm talking about this, I'm slightly worried about is that knowledge can be a little bit dangerous because it feels like you might burn yourself out on a glimmer. Like if you're like smelling baked cookies is my glimmer. Baked cookies around my house all the time to remind me of home. Like you can only do that so much before you get sick and tired of the smell of baked cookies.
Maybe
Bless
not.
you, Lisa.
I don't know. I don't think
Maybe.
I don't know. I can't.
Well, I'm talking about. I'm going back to like our
I
talk
get what
about.
you're saying.
I'm going back to our talk about like the hedonic treadmill. Like you
Yeah.
can only do a good thing so many times before it lessens its impact and you return sort of this neutral state. Which, my personal glimmer might be doing, drugs or something like that. That'd be the obvious example where it's like, yeah, if you do that enough times, it's not going to feel as good.
I don't think that.
But that
So
I'm using an extreme silly example.
let me
but like,
let me ask you a question, Anthony, because I know you're not fond of flying, but you've been doing it a lot lately.
I've been doing it too much.
What kind of state
Mhm.
are you in currently?
I can answer that. Wait, currently right now?
Well, I mean,
Or when I'm flying?
in the most current flight experience.
Oh, well, that's funny because that goes back to now it actually becomes a relevant example because of the drug example I gave. I'm on Xanax, so I feel.
How about this? Let's talk about your diving experience, though.
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a better
Probably
example.
Because you were able to calm yourself down and lower your heart rate while diving, right?
So that's like going from one end of the spectrum to the other in terms of like, panicking, you're gonna drown underwater versus okay, now I'm like chill and I'm lasting longer than the other people underwater. Because they're sucking all their air out of their tanks. What does that feel like? Part of that is like when we're talking about like triggers and external environmental cues, we know, Brooke, you and I, that if you dive into cold water or any sort of body of water, that's going to immediately lower your heart rate. So there's immediately a calming effect when you're underwater that's involuntary. You can't really help that. Then after that, it was a process of trusting myself and having to trust the equipment and mostly just not having to swim around anymore. Once you're at the bottom, you're at the bottom. And you hook in, and then you can just sort of look at all the stuff you wouldn't be able to see before. And then that's even more calming. And then when you unhook and get taken away by the current, my heart rate goes up and I start to freak out again.
So what makes you be able to do that without Xanax?
I can't dive while on Xanax.
I mean, okay, you know what I'm saying though. Like, what makes that
saying.
possible, but that's not yet possible for your flying?
Which is weird too, because the reason why I don't like flying, this is the actual reason. The reason why I can do the diving but not the flying so well is because I'm in control. I know I'm in control when I'm diving. I have full control. I'm piloting my body. I'm piloting the gear that's on my back. I'm checking all the gear. Everything is within my reach and control. And if I want to bail out, I can go to the top. Everything's, within my personal locus of control.
So we just got to get you to learn how to fly an airplane.
I got to learn how to fly an airplane.
Yeah, but then I'm going to freak out because I'm going to be like, I can't.
Okay, you're not in the airplane. I get to be in the airplane.
So would you say, based on our conversation, that your underwater experience when you're in control, is that self-glimmer?
No, I
I
would.
think is
I
what
would.
Steve's
I
asking.
would not describe that experience as a Well, because that would be that would be the good association as being underwater. I need something
That's
on
going to
dry
remind you of
land that is a glimmer that reminds me of that. Sticking my face in a pot of cold water. I don't know.
that.
I haven't dived and I haven't done that long enough for that question to be answered yet. So maybe in 20 years, if I have more diving experience, I'll have those glimmers. And maybe, after more flying, I'll have some more triggers in
What
regards to
about
flying.
looking at a photo of you diving? Like, would you instantly have a moment of glimmer?
No, I don't think so. I'm more of like a smell person.
Okay.
Well, you can't smell your nose is in your mask. So it smells salt water?
No. We're talking about in like my day-to-day life.
Oh, so the smell of salt
But
water?
I'm talking about like glimmer experiences that I can think of in my day-to-day life. I'm probably more like smell based than like seeing something and feeling good, or maybe sound based as well.
There's a really powerful connection. Our what is this? Sinus system is neurologically the same or connected to the memory part of our brain. So the two are very closely linked, and that's
this is probably a California thing, but that smell that is very particular to Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes.
That's one of those moments. Sorry, Jen, you wouldn't know. Georgia people would not understand this.
If you've been to Disneyland, and you've been on Pirates, you know the Pirates.
Well, I've been on the ride in Orlando.
It's not the same.
I don't know.
How could that be?
You have an obsession. Wait, do you have it? But like, so that's associated. I agree with you 100%. The smell of Pirates of the Caribbean brings me so much joy because I'm at Disneyland and I'm having freaking fun. And so like I smell it and I go like, yeah.
Anytime you smell that smell outside in the real world that's not associated with Disneyland, you smell it and you're like, oh, that's Pirates of the Caribbean. You're like immediately brought there.
Where do you smell that outside?
Yeah, where would you smell that outside?
In wet, dank, piratey environments. I don't know.
Somebody's bathroom.
I've smelled. The thing is, though, it's happened before. I've smelled the smell, and I'm like, "Oh, Pirates of the Caribbean!" I'm immediately brought back there. I've had that happen with other smells before, where it's like I'm immediately shunted to that part of my life.
It's because like the same part of our brain that processes emotion and memory and all of that stuff processes odor. So
that is so popular too.
Memory is so strong.
What I'm describing is so popular that you can go and buy candles or some sort of scent online. I know it's out there that smells like the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, that's awesome! That's hilarious.
Oh my gosh!
It is out there.
I wouldn't want to though, because like
where I'm going with this though is that it is possible. Let's try to tie this back to coaching.
So he's trying to authenticate his opinion about that set.
Yeah. Where I'm trying to go with that is that it is possible for a person to go out there, cultivate their glimmers and cues and all the things that will, give them whatever memories or senses of feelings that they like. But how is that relevant to coaching?
As a coach, I'm going to give my clients all a glimmer prior to the coming in. I'm going to ask them to fill out a form with what their glimmers are. And then I'm going to send them a candle that smells like whatever makes them feel safe. And then I'm going to have the music that makes them feel comfortable and safe and at home playing in the background, as well as the imagery on my TV will be stuff that makes them feel safe and cozy so that I can hack the safety of my clients.
They're going to forget why they came in at all.
Well,
and then they'll want to come back all the time.
If a client is trying to find a calm state and they don't know what that is, that's a place that they can learn to grow through their coaching and conversations on what that looks like, so that they're activating that perhaps in a place where that amygdala got hijacked and they can find that moment where they've caught their breath and then get that visualization. There's items people wear that they can touch that helps them be reminded of that state. There's pictures they can look at, just like Brooke was going down that highway with setting it all up before they came in. There's all kinds of things that can help someone through that moment to find that glimmer.
I used to wear copper bracelets, and that it was essentially it was connected to my safety. I made like an anchor to the bracelets I wore to make me feel safe and grounded. So like when I would start to feel triggered in situations, I would reach down and I would grab my bracelets and I would sort of hold them or run them or fiddle with them. And it brought me a sense of safety. And I did that for a long time and I wore them every single day. I think Anthony met me when I was still wearing them every day.
What are those?
And yeah. And so I also, to this day, the color copper around my house, because of that and like copper things, I feel just this sense of sort of safety that, and it was something I did on purpose. Like I did this with Lisa. We made like an association where we anchored it to it and a sense of safety to it. And I utilized that as a tool to sort of calm myself down and focus my energy into the bracelet kind of, but not really. I mean, it was all mental, but it was something I definitely utilized as a tool. How could you do that if there's a coach? I'm not sure. But what I think we could do as coaches though is recognize when our clients mention something that might be a glimmer in their lives and make that observation for them.
Yeah.
You know, so if they're talking about something and they may not realize it, but they talk about something that makes them feel safe, makes them feel grounded, something that makes them feel anchored, and we can recognize those and then make that observation to our clients so that they can decide to utilize that as a tool however they wish, right? But it's having this awareness as a coach that external factors can affect our clients one way or another, and then when we're listening in sessions with them, being able to identify when those moments come up and are happening for our clients, whether it be a trigger or a glimmer, and for us to make that observation so that they can utilize that observation however they wish. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
I still think that's not, a glimmer worksheet before they come in is a great idea.
There was one of the things that we read that talked about keeping a glimmer journal to try to peak your awareness about all the things that create that for you. I thought I liked that for myself.
It's similar to a gratitude journal, and they can be tricky. The only thing is they can be tricky because you want to not get lost in the which I would do the non-feeling part of it, but really focus on the feeling and emotion state of it and not get I would make it too technical. But yeah, keeping a running tally of this makes me happy. This makes me feel warm and fuzzy. I used to, when I would get really sad or sort of down and depressed, one of the tools I used to get me out of that state, this state where I'm fixating on negative, was to start to think about, I would start by thinking about the things that the people in my life that I loved. So my brother, my dad, my family, and then I would start to think about them and how they were, and utilize that as sort of a tool to get me out of thinking about how sad I was and into a space where I could think about other people and the things I loved. And so I think similarly, Glimmer Journal would be something that could be very helpful in that as well.
And it doesn't even have to be formal. It can be a note in your phone or texting someone when you have that moment, something like that. I mean,
I had it this morning with Brooke. She was writing something about an experience, and I'm cracking up at what she wrote. Who was it? Somebody, I think it was Gabrielle or Harold, I can't remember which, came in and asked me what was I laughing at. And it's really, I think it was Harold. He had to know more. I didn't have time to tell him all the details, but it's lost in translation. But it was so funny that I just sat there and enjoyed that moment. And to me, that felt like a glimmer. Glimmer doesn't always have to be, joyful like that. It can be, as Brooke has called it earlier, that anchor, that grounding space as well.
I have moments where I will literally be laughing out loud just reading our conversations in Slack. And sometimes my husband will be like, "What is going on? Are you on video with someone right now?" I'm like, "No, I'm just reading the Slack." It's really funny.
Yeah, I think we all have those moments.
Yeah.
That's the thing too, though. I think there's a saying, and it's like love is in the details, or love is in the little thing. I mean, I think that happiness and joy is in the little moments, right? And it's something we've talked about too. And it's this mindfulness coming in and having that mindfulness, that moment, and acknowledging, hey, this made me feel like this, and I liked it. So I'm going to recognize that and maybe make a point of stopping to smell the roses, just to throw out a, cliche. But I think that's what that means, right? That's what that saying means. Stopping to smell the roses. It's stopping to appreciate your glimmer, whatever that may be.
I wonder when that statement came. I'm going to look it up real quick.
Probably when roses were invented.
Yes. But that's what that is, and it's this moment of I think it's been around. If we think about the phrase, it's been around for a long time. It's that we have to stop and sit in and appreciate these wonderful things that are around us. I was just on a trip recently, and we're in the middle of the Maldives. Just beautiful, doing amazing, just surrounded by how can you be sad or down or angry or mad in this moment? And I was so shocked when there were gripey, whiny, negativity going on in that space. And all I would sit and just look, and I just have to look out at the ocean and just be in awe of the world. And it was a little sad that other people could not just sort of sit back and let go of things that ultimately I felt like were very important, and just like be in the glimmer, be in the moment, enjoy this. Look at you're in the middle of the Indian Ocean doing freaking amazing things. How can you be anything but smiling right now? But I guess it goes to show you, right? So it was, I think that it's that mindfulness piece. That do you have to be happy to appreciate a glimmer? I guess not, right? You said anybody can access it at any point. So
yeah,
it's there.
Yeah.
That was
when you have that moment, if you just take one mindful breath, it's like a little mini meditation.
It's a choice, right?
Yeah.
It's choosing to not be so sucked into whatever the trigger is if you're in that state, and allowing that moment for your body to be at rest with that opposite feeling.
My grandma passed away recently, and I was so grateful for my 2-year-old nephew. In that, like when the day she passed away, I went down and I was with my 2-year-old nephew, my mom, my stepdad, and everything. And it was impossible to just be in a state of like grieving, because there's a 2-year-old running around just being adorable, and he's just gonna do him and be happy. And it's just this expression of life, and it's just simple joy. And it was, all of us said it, like it's impossible to be so sad when you have this little acute ball of life running around. And it was so cool. Like that was such a, I appreciate him so much for being there. You know, already appreciate the kid, but he's a little cutie pie.
Yeah.
You better not grow up and be a jerk.
If he is, you can introduce some triggers to him.
Jerome, you're speaking. Yay.
Oh no, I was just gonna say he will be during his teen years. That's just
Yeah.
Part of the process.
Nature of the beast. Yeah.
Middle school too. God, I mean, middle school for whatever reason, I just feel like is the most uncomfortable season of life. Like you're just a disaster in middle school.
I'm gonna just do my best to acknowledge whatever it is he's going through and be the cool aunt. Hopefully,
that's what I do.
Good gig. It really is.
Well, we're right at our time. We're finishing up. Final thoughts on Glimmers, y'all?
I enjoyed them.
I was gonna say I wasn't too aware of this term really until yesterday when it came up.
Okay.
But it is a really cool concept, so I'm happy we got to speak through it.
I'm probably never going to use like the terminology for this concept ever in my day-to-day life.
It does sound like the name of a My Little Pony. Like I feel like a Glimmer. I feel like unicorns and rainbows. But I mean, it's also very pretty.
But the term is useful in coaching because it's a way to talk. Like when we use triggers in coaching, or why do we have to be aware of it? It's for people who are motivated to be away from danger or pain or negativity, while Glimmer is a way to talk into the space where you're motivated towards pleasure, towards happiness, towards rewards. And a Glimmer is like your brain rewarding you for something. So keeping all that in mind, it is still useful in coaching to be aware and have the clients be aware of what those glimmers are, because they could be a way to, reward themselves for whatever goals they may accomplish, or be a motivation towards achieving future goals. That's it. That's my final thought.
Yes, Steve just put in, there's a book called Choosing Happiness Even When Life is Hard by Dr. Binnerth. And it reminds me of my dad. Something my dad says all the time is like, life sucks. And when you realize that, it gets a lot more easy and a lot more fun. Like when you just accept it and stop fighting it and just sort of that just isn't what it is. It gets a lot easier and a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Stop trying to fight it.
One of the visits that I had before my grandfather passed, he had written something down. And when I came over, he wanted me to read it because he didn't remember what he wrote. And he wrote about how the alligators off Alligator Alley in Florida bask in the sun, and how the seals, at the San Francisco, what is it, Pier 49 or something, and I don't know exactly, they'll lay on the pier and they'll bask in the sun. And he was literally just writing about basking in the sun. And as we're talking about this, I'm like, I think he was talking about glimmers. He just didn't know it. Like, why was he thinking about that? Because he was thinking about the simplest joy.
Yeah.
Like these animals just laying in the sun. It's the most simple pleasure. I love it.
Love it.
What a nice memory too.
Mm-hmm.
I know. And I took a picture of it too. So I have that forever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it? Is that all of our final thoughts?
I think so.
I guess so.
We'll see you guys next week then. We're still going to be talking emotions. I don't know what the topic will be about.
It was kind of tapped into. I haven't gotten the stamp of approval from everybody here, but I was leaning towards speaking into highly sensitive people and what that is. So, and then I think the last week, we're going to talk about somatics and what that means. And because that's something that goes on a lot in all of this. So and I think it all falls under the emotions umbrella. Don't put a bet on it being 100% the way we go because sometimes change.
Don't hold us to it.
But I do believe we'll be talking about highly sensitive people next week. I don't think we've done that yet, and I think
Yeah, I think that's a new one.
there's a voice message that I accessed. I was driving and I was like, Emotions 101, highly sensitive people and somatics. I'm leaving this here so I don't forget it. And I looked back today and I was like, there it is. Oh my God, thank you. So
All right. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment. Check out our classes as well, where we talk about. Well, actually, I don't think it's
Glimmers.
triggers and glimmers. We're going to start talking about it if we don't already.
I think we did add in glimmers just this last year. So
You can tell I haven't been in class in a little while, so we'll be talking about it.
Get back.
Yeah, you need to take an alumni seat, mister.
Nah, it's okay. All right. See you guys next week.
See you guys.
Bye.